Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel and I make videos usually about hand piecing and English paper piecing, but we're at a different location today and I'm going to be showing you a machine sewing project. Now, a couple of months ago I showed you how to do a hand pieced quilt as you go rectangle and square project, which was kind of like a brick layout. I'll leave the links to all of those in the description down below if you haven't watched those or you're new here. But I did have a few requests on that video to actually show you how to machine sew it, or was it possible to sew it by machine? And yes, it is. So I have made a little test block for you. This will be put to good use. I think it'll make a great coaster or something to rest an ornament on. So I've made this little block and I'll be showing you in today's video how you do this. Just give you a little close-up view. Don't worry, all of these raw edges that would be here at the top and the bottom, once you add more to it, it will be completely non-raw edge, so don't worry about that. So I have also included in this video a small bit of footage of basting the shapes using the templates which I purchased from Daisy and Grace. But in my previous videos, I think I did 3 videos and I will leave those down below. But in those videos I showed you in a little bit more detail and I discussed things probably in a bit more detail as well. And there is loads and loads of really helpful comments giving tips in the comment sections on those videos as well. So if you are keen on this project, do check out those other videos as well. So with this, I just use scrap fabric for the front and the back. The only thing that I would say is obviously here you've got like a zigzag stitch. So if you don't want that to be as visible, then use a matching thread. So I used light blue fabric and a white thread, just because I just already had the white thread loaded on the machine. But if you want it to stand out, you could use a contrasting thread, but if you want it to blend in a little bit more, then use a matching thread. The templates that I used were by a company called Daisy and Grace, and they're just a brilliant company. I do really like them. They ship internationally and their shipping is really fast. I can only vouch for the UK, but they dispatch them really quickly, so they are really nice. They're just a small business. This isn't a sponsored video or anything like that. It's just my honest opinion, and I think they're brilliant. So I hope you like this video. If you do have any other questions, just leave them me on this video and I will do my best to get back to you. This template set comes in 2 parts. You've got the outside and then the inside. So you use the larger piece to cut what will be like the backing and the binding. It's perfectly fine to use all of these with rotary cutters. That's what makes the template really thick and nice. So these are the 2 backing pieces and I cut through 2 layers at once, and then the smaller inner shape, that is what you cut your inner fabric or your patterned fabric. You use that one to cut that, and you also use the wadding with this square as well. So again, I just use scraps of wadding that I've had left over, and this is an 80-20 mix of cotton and polyester wadding. And then you use the template, the window of the template, to make sure that it's centered in the middle, and that will give your binding edge really neat and even all the way around. Now, I was demonstrating there, you can either use pins or clips. I preferred using the clips in this instance, and I like to give it a little press with a seam roller just to create a really nice crease, and I just put the clips all around. You do need to put pins in the middle just to hold the middle in place while you're doing all of this fiddling, just to stop any shifting, because it's really important that you get those center rectangles centered in the outer rectangle to make sure that everything is nice and even and that your shapes come out as uniform as possible. I find these thinner clips to be really useful, but any clips that you have will do the job really nicely. Just make sure you're paying attention to the inner corners to make sure that they're at a 90-degree angle rather than making it any type of different skew. And there we go, that's all basted. You can do a few of those at once, and then you can just sit at your sewing machine and sew them together, and this is what it would look like if you used pins as well. I have a Husqvarna Viking sewing machine, and all I did at the start is I just paid attention to making sure I was tucking the raw edge inside. and I stitched very closely with a straight stitch, very closely to the join mark, and this will also alleviate any need to actually add any quilting, because when you're doing this stitching on the machine it will act as the quilting as well. Unless you're going to go for the larger shapes that Daisy and Grace do, I doubt that you would need to add any quilting unless you wanted to, of course. So I'm just using a blunt needle just to guide everything through, keep my fingers out the way, but also to make sure that the fabric guides through nice and flush, and just remove the clips as you go. When you get to the corner you want to stop right on the line and then use your hand crank just to hand crank one turn to keep the needle down, lift the foot and then rotate the project and just continue sewing. So you can see there just quite how close I am to the edge of the binding. Just remove the clip and again go right to the corner edge, not the outer edge, the inner corner. And then when you're there, just hand crank and lift your foot. Remove any clips that are in the way and just continue sewing. I went really slow. This footage is sped up by 2 times, but I went as slow as I could just to make sure that my line was staying nice and smooth and accurate. And that's the finished piece. Don't worry about that. The corners are loose. That will all come together once you sew 2 to each other. Once you sew 2 together, snip any of your end threads just so that they don't get caught up in the joining process, just to keep everything really nice and neat. And then how you join them is up to you and what pattern you're doing. Oh yeah, that's the darning needle that I use just to push everything through. I put on a zigzag stitch. It wasn't a normal zigzag stitch, so it's stitched, you'll see as it's stitching, but use whatever you like, and I made mine a little bit thinner so that it wasn't too overpowering over the design. You can stitch them together whatever configuration you like. I went for side by side to make a 5.5 inch square. And then just start just shy of the start, so if you can start before you even get to the fabric, and then your very first few stitches will be bang on the edge of the fabric. Keep them butted together but don't overlay them, you just want it next to each other. So as I'm going, I'm pushing them together to make a little join. I did put a clip on the opposite end so I can make sure that it's going to be even when I get there, and one of the sides I needed to stretch a little bit and the other one I needed to ease in, but it was no problem really because it was quite a small distance. I made sure that constantly my needle middle position was where the gap is in between, and that I was catching both sides of the fabric each time. And when I got to this little end piece, I just took some time just to make sure that any raw edges was tucked inside, and I did do a back stitch a couple of times once I got to the edge before ending the line of sewing. And yeah, so this is pretty much the end of the tutorial now, so I really hope that this was useful. Do let me know if you have any questions or if you intend to make a project like this, and I'll leave any relevant links down in the description box below. So thank you guys so much for watching. You take care and enjoy yourself.